Let's just go right to the source. Husker baseball assistant Lance Harvell joins us on the Allo VIP line. Coach, how's it going? We're less than 48 hours. How are we feeling as we're getting ready for the season?
Gentlemen, the sun is shining. Haymarket Park is green. The dirt has been drug, and we are ready to get after it. So less than 24 hours now. We're heading south, getting ready for the opener. So we're excited.
Now, I guess there's a lot of new faces on this Huskers team this year. There's some familiarity with some of the outfielders, yes, but especially pitching staff, some of the infielders as well. A lot of new faces. Just how are we feeling about kind of the molding of everybody kind of coming together as a collective group as like you said, less than 24 hours before you guys travel south?
Yeah, I've told a lot of people in a somewhat of a weird way, strange way. You lose the production and some of the talent. You have 4 top 10 rounders on last year's team. And oddly enough, I feel like we have a better team top to bottom this year. And we've got older guys coming back that know the offense, know the system. Guys on the mound that have, really kind of taken on more of a leadership role. Guys like Kyle Perry, those type guys, and Drew Christo. I mean, so I think, maybe where you can't really set out to replace production of a guy, like Bryce Matthews or Max Anderson, or Emmett Olson on the mound. I think we look to kind of replace that in the aggregate, and I really do. I think we have a better team top to bottom. I think we have more depth on the mound. I think we have more depth in the lineup. And it's going to be a little bit, different, obviously, than last year, where we may not go out and set another school record for home runs or something. But I think we'll, just in terms of being more dynamic, and using some small ball, stealing bases, those kind of things, in addition to some of the power. And that's kind of more our style. I think that's more of the style of offense that I like to run, putting pressure on the defense, forcing them to make plays, kind of speeding them up a little bit. That's more what we're designed for and built to do. And this year's team, I think has that dynamic.
Coach, when you think about the gritty, not pretty ethos, you kind of touched on it there, right? School record number of home runs, a lot of strikeouts from the mound. That to me qualifies as pretty, right? It's what draws people attention. But what's been the coaching staff's approach this offseason to really re-emphasize that gritty part, both in the box and on the mound?
Yeah, just kind of what are kind of reinforcing the culture, and it's an everyday thing that you have to do, and that's our job as coaches, is to set that culture, and let it trickle down, from the top. But I think we've been more challenging. We've kind of set out to be more challenging of the guys. One thing we talk about, the best teams just in general, and the best teams we've ever played on or coached, just been a part of, they're player led, and guys really take ownership of the culture and what the standards are from inside that locker room, and they're the ones that police it on a day-to-day basis. And that we've challenged the guys to hold each other more accountable, to kind of hold each other to a higher standard, with our culture, with winning, with being competitive, with how they work, and you name it. And I think, kind of making some comparisons from that standpoint back to that 2021 team. This team is very similar to that, just with guys in the locker room that kind of from a buy-in factor and aren't afraid to say something when it needs to be said. That kind of thing. That's where I've seen this team kind of take the next step. And I've been super proud of a lot of the guys, talked about just a second ago, but just some of the older guys, I mentioned, Perry and Christo, on the position player side. Garrett Engelman and Cole Evans have been phenomenal. Then you got Josh Karen and Dylan Carey, that have kind of taken on more of that burden of leadership, and especially given the nature of the positions they play, catcher and shortstop. Like you have to be the standard bearer for what we're trying to do, and you can't. Those guys know, like, I can't take a day off, can't take a pitch off, can't take a rep off because all eyes are on me. And they've done a phenomenal job of owning that and really embracing it, not running away from it.
We're speaking to Husker baseball assistant Lance Harvell. He also handles recruiting, the recruiting coordinator for Husker baseball. And I mentioned that last part because you mentioned the 4 guys that got drafted in the top 10. How big of a feather in your cap is it for the entire coaching staff and program when you can go talk to a JUCO guy or even just a high school guy and say, look at the development of these guys in recent years that have now moved on to the majors and into professional ball. How big of a feather in your cap is it that you guys have the ability to say that when talking to a recruit or a potential future Husker?
Yeah, that's big because that's what we hang our hat on, and that's basically all that we talk about in the recruiting process. Is you're going to come here and you're going to get better from the time you step foot on campus until the time you leave. It's our job to make sure we're getting the most out of you and that you get better and kind of selling the resources and the facilities and the people that we have here, kind of back that up. And then when you can put some names and faces to that and kind of point to those things, it goes a long way. And now having said that, I'd much rather have that feather in my cap of, conference champion, regional champion, super regional host, College World Series, that I'd like those feathers, a little bit. And so we're kind of working towards that, but no, to your point, like it's big because you get guys, that maybe, are from, like Texas is a kind of a hotbed for us. We've got a lot of ties to Texas and, to get guys to come, out of state like that and to come, anywhere from 9 to 12 hours away from home, or if they're coming from Florida or California or wherever it is, you got to give them a good reason, just to put it in very simple terms, you got to give them a good reason to come here. And when guys can see that, the path to, making it to the big leagues, the path to professional baseball is a real possibility. And there's been multiple guys, that have come before them and made that a possibility. It's big, and it's a pretty big selling point for us.
Coach, when you look at your role as recruiting coordinator too, seemed like there's a pretty heavy focus on the JUCO ranks this offseason. What went into the decision behind that approach?
Well, a lot of that has to do with just kind of what our, a lot of our backgrounds. Like our entire coaching staff, we're all former JUCO guys, either played junior college or coached in junior college or did both. And so we have a lot of ties with, coaches and guys, in junior college baseball, number one. So that's always kind of been a well that we dipped into, and it just kind of fits what we want to do anyway. Just again, going back to the culture thing from a gritty versus pretty, there's something about junior college baseball. If you've been through it, you know that life and what it's about. It's you number one, you got to have a passion to play baseball, and you gotta grind, because those guys, they're playing all the time. They probably play 30 games in the fall and then another 60 in the spring and in the summer. And so there's a lot of development from that point, but those guys are tough. They're playing double headers, every time out. So kind of what you're getting from that standpoint. And the other side is just kind of some learning, I think, with how to navigate the transfer portal. Everybody obviously knows that's how that has changed college athletics in general, but from a recruiting standpoint, I think we've had some success in the portal, but more often than not, you're kind of chasing your tail a little bit at times. And so we just kind of sat back and reevaluated what we were going after and what we were doing. And just, we realized we have much more success getting the same type of player out of the JUCO ranks than we do in the portal, and so if you can get the same type player at, that fits your culture maybe a little bit better, or that you have a pretty good idea that what you're getting, why not go after that? And so it just made more sense to us to maybe put a little more emphasis in the JUCO ranks. And so that's kind of what we did. And we went out and we signed the number one JUCO class in the country. And we've seen, I think people will see those guys sprinkled in here starting Friday, in the lineup and on the mound. And so it's kind of a layered answer there for you, or some reasoning, but those two things are really what it boiled down to with the JUCO guys.
We're speaking to Husker baseball assistant Lance Harvell. Coach, you mentioned the coaching staff and you guys as that team, a lot of history there. I guess we've been reminding listeners as we're previewing the season that, hey, this is the first year that a third full-time assistant has been allowed on staffs. And you guys went out and hired Mike Sirianni from Wichita State. What kind of added benefit is that, just having a third full-time guy in addition to obviously you, now Rob Childress, and then at the top with Coach Bolt? What's that added benefit of Coach Sirianni been over just the offseason to this point?
Yeah, well, as people know, I mean, we've had the volunteer assistant, in place. So we've always had that guy on staff. And now we have the ability to pay that guy. And so the way that it worked out, just from a timing standpoint, with Danny Marcuzzo being here the whole time that we've been here, and him, kind of ready to kind of spread his wings as a coach and go run an offense on his own. It kind of just worked out with the timing of the new rule and everything that, he was looking to go do that and take on some more ownership somewhere else. And Siri's a guy that we have a lot of history with. His older brother played here, pitched here for Coach Childress, and was teammates with Coach Bolt for a year back in the late 90s. And I worked with him for 5 years before I came here down at Sam Houston State. So we've all, just with the family and knowing Mike as well, it was just kind of a natural fit. And then again, from a timing standpoint, it's kind of one of those things. It's funny how things work out, where everything kind of fell into place. They have a coaching change there at Wichita State, so he was looking for something, and it was just kind of like, hey, we all go back a long way. We know, again, kind of like with the JUCO guys, just like with recruiting, it's the same type deal, right? It's like, you have a guy that immediately fits in from the minute he gets here, and so there's just from the coaching staff meshing, and from just kind of a like-minded type coach that also brings some new ideas and new things that you want to do. It's from a kind of some fresh blood type deal. But him being at Wichita State, being from Iowa, and having coached Iowa Western, and being a scout in the area previously, he knows the Midwest. He knows the footprint that we're recruiting like the back of his hand. And so it's been just a huge boost for us in all phases. And so it's now, instead of recruiting the same guys and fighting over the same players, now we're all on the same side, and now we can start just reeling them in here. So he's been awesome, and Siri's a great dude. Like I said, he's a baseball guy, and it's been awesome to have him so far.
Coach, couple more before we let you go. We're speaking to Coach Lance Harvell, Husker baseball assistant, as they get ready for the Shriner Showdown this weekend out in Texas. Now, you've mentioned throughout multiple times, whether it's bringing guys, giving them a reason to come to Nebraska, whether it's recruiting the Midwest, or just now this day and age of baseball, I always love to ask coaches their viewpoints on analytics, because you hear so much about launch angle and exit velocity and bat on ball percentage and quality ABs, like all of those analytical sides. They're creeping into other sports, yes, on like fourth down conversions and stuff, but it's really centered in baseball, and there's a lot of analytics in the game. With your guys' approach as a staff, how much do you guys read into analytics, but then also just go out and be a ball player?
Yeah, I believe, and I think we all believe, you got to kind of have a combination of the two. I mean, we look into a lot of analytics when we're doing scouting reports and getting ready for this weekend. Obviously, it's been pretty busy around here. We've changed a few ink cartridges in the old printer, just with playing 3 different teams on the weekend. So you look into a lot of things, just getting ready to scout other teams' pitchers and hitters, and where you're going to play them defensively, and what you can expect on the mound from guys. I mean, we've got pitching machines set up in the cages right now, mimicking what we're going to face on Friday night, with Baylor. We've got, the exact spin rate and velocity of the fastball, and the same thing with the guy's slider and all of that. And so we can use that kind of stuff. We've got, virtual reality headsets where we can pull up game footage of the guy, and guys can go step into the metaverse, into the batter's box there, and face him and get at bats and see his pitches and see his delivery and his arm action and all that before we ever even step foot down there in global life. And so that kind of stuff is big. It's taken over the game, but at the same time, the way that we use that stuff, a lot of it is for the coaches. The way that we actually train the guys, probably 80% of the time, is to just go compete. When it comes down to it, the guy's going to throw the ball over the plate. He's got a fastball, he's got a slider, he's got a changeup. We're going to give you a good approach to take against the guy, but when the rubber meets the road, you got to step in the box and compete. You got to toe that rubber and just out-compete the guy. And that, again, just kind of what I hope people see, the way that we've been working, the way that we've played all fall in the last month here, leading up to the season. As a coach, you just want that stuff to show up on game day. And that's what we really emphasize is we're going to train a certain way. We're going to work a certain way. We're going to make things hard so that when you get to the game, it's maybe a little bit easier. There's nothing you haven't seen, nothing you haven't done. The game's going to slow down for you, and you can just worry about going and competing and playing as fast and as hard and as loose as you possibly can. Just let it go shine on game day, and that's kind of how we kind of approach it. So you got to kind of have the two things, are kind of the new school and the old school. I mean, the very first thing we did with this team in the fall, we took a little bit different approach. Before we ever picked up, a bat or a ball or did anything even remotely related to baseball, the first week of skill instruction, we did nothing but compete. And me and Siri and Coach Bolt, we just sat around coming up with different types of competitions that we could do, you name it, whatever it is. And we did 7 days of competitions. We split them into teams, and they just went at it for 7 days. And they didn't know what was coming. They just knew, all right, we just got to show up at 2:30, and we're competing at something. We don't know what it is. They're going to throw something at us. It might be crazy, or it could be the most simple thing you've ever heard in your life. We just got to show up and compete. And that was the tone we set with this team, from the get-go. And that's what we've seen. And now you start to mix in, okay, now we can, we've got some advanced analytics and things like that we can mix in, so we can be a little bit smarter. But at the end of the day, it is all about just competing.
Coach, I know you have the good facilities and all the technology for the analytics. I think the Royals were up here within the last few years at your facilities, which is pretty cool as a Royals fan. But with Coach Childress being on staff, baseball lifer, been around the block a few times, how is he taken to the analytics? Is he one of those, old school baseball guys, or how has he, molded his old school baseball approach with some of the numbers that you guys are able to provide?
Yeah, I mean, he's got kind of the mix of both, because I think, if you don't adapt over time, and he's been doing this long enough, that he understands that, and he knows that if you don't adapt, you're just going to get left behind. And so, he digs into those hitters and looks at those things, just looking at how to attack hitters, where the holes in their swing may be. I mean, he probably started his prep for opening weekend and watching video of hitters for Baylor and Tech in Oklahoma. This, probably weeks ago, just kind of, looking at that and looking at, all right, here's the best pitching matchups, and here's who we're going to start here. And then the next guy that's going to get the ball with this guy, because this is the best matchup for these guys. If we get to this guy in the order, then we're going to go to this guy out of the bullpen. And so, that kind of stuff goes a long way. But again, he's still got that. He hasn't forgotten who he is or where he came from, and the pitchers know. And if you talk to any of our guys, again, it's just kind of beating a dead horse. But the compete part of the equation is huge, and he gives the pitchers a test, just like we give the hitters like a written test, and it's over the whole pitching system and all that kind of stuff. And once they pass the test, he gives them a T-shirt. It's kind of like, the pitching staff T-shirt or whatever. And it's got all the things listed on the T-shirt that the pitching staff is going to be about. And it's, throwing strikes and getting ahead, getting the leadoff hitter, 3-1, walk to strike, all that stuff. And it's all listed out on the shirt. But every other word in between there in all caps is the word compete. So again, when you boil it down, you can take all that stuff and throw it out the window when the lights come on. Because if you don't have that, if you can't tap into that compete bone and you don't have that pilot lit, just fired up in your belly, to just go out compete somebody, it doesn't matter, and it's all about, you could have, a electric, arm and a 95 mile an hour fastball. If you don't throw strikes because you're scared of contact, what good does it do you? You could go groove out the prettiest swing that anybody's ever seen and have, power to all fields. If you're scared to swing the bat because you're not competitive, it does you no good. And so again, on both sides of the ball, those are things we preach all the time.
Coach, we could go on for another 30 minutes having this conversation with you're talking to two baseball guys here. Really good stuff. We'll go ahead and let you go. Coach Harvell, good luck this weekend. Appreciate you sitting down and taking about 20 minutes of your time with us, and we'll certainly have you on down the road.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, guys.